Hello, welcome to Author Hour. I'm your host, Richard Lyntton, author of North Korea Deception and Hyde Park Deception. Today, a very special day, I would like to welcome local author Tom Garvey. Tom is a Vietnam veteran and retired real estate agent. He has captured hearts, minds, and curiosity of readers all over the country and beyond with this enigmatic tale of living in a secret apartment between 1979 and 1981 inside the Veterans Stadium of Philadelphia without getting caught. Kind of a Phantom of the Opera story set in South Philly. And if you haven't heard about it yet, his book is called The Secret Apartment. Welcome, Tom. Great to have you.
Hello.
Thanks for coming, man. That's okay. Let's start off with the cap, because the cap is great. Okay. I was in the military as well. Tell us what the cap is.
This is just it's an Army cap. It's Airborne Ranger Special Force. Well, it doesn't have Ranger on this hat. I was an Airborne Ranger in the Special Forces. But this is a Special Forces hat, and the pin on it is belonged to a friend of mine, Jim Cox, who was in the 17th Airborne. People don't know about the 17th Airborne in World War II because it only existed from March or April of 43 until the 17th of February 1945. And it was disbanded. And they were the glider troops and airborne troops that went into Germany in late March of 45. The last big battle, airborne battle.
Now, Tom, we've been chatting for a while, and you've just got so many, like, literally war stories from Vietnam. It's insane. We might come back to that, but I do want to start off with the basics. You wrote, and we're going to start off with your second book. So when did you start writing? Actually, no, here's what I want to ask you. When you came back from Vietnam and you went into that stadium before your whole story starts, what kind of emotional state were you actually in? I mean, what kind of condition? Because people are going to say, well, wait a minute, was he a bit crazy? Was he homeless? Was he what? So give us a little sense of how it all began, the secret apartment, and what kind of sort of state, emotional state you were in at that stage.
Yes, since the secret apartment came out, I've learned things that I didn't understand before. And one was, I usually said that I lived there because I could, which is true. I had means, opportunity, and motive. But I lived there, now I understand, I lived there because I had to, in many ways.
Right.
That stadium for me was like a monastery where I had time to go inside myself and really examine a lot of things.
Okay.
I was writing a book about Vietnam at the time, starting it, and I wasn't satisfied with anything I was doing, and I had a lot of frustrations and a lot of baggage from the war.
Right.
To be in Veterans Stadium with 60-some thousand rabid Eagles fans on a Sunday afternoon in terrible weather, whatever, and be part of all that emotional spirit, and then 2 days later to be sitting there all by yourself at the top, drinking a beer or just having roller skated around the top of the building a little bit for a while, just meditating, and the quiet, it really did a lot to help me.
Okay, so let me just stop you right there. So just so people understand, you literally were living in a room, and you can tell us. But I just want people to be super clear, because you've had coverage in the Philadelphia Inquirer, you've had coverage in the New York Times, you've even got a possible movie option on your story. So just give us a sense. I just want to be real clear. You were literally sort of almost like, I mean, is it true to say almost like a homeless person? You were literally living in a room inside the Vet Stadium without anybody knowing. Is that right?
No, a lot of people knew.
Okay.
But I think John Spagnola in the New York Times article, when they interviewed him, he said, he kind of, I can see him laughing when he said this too. He said I was affable, which was a great word. John was probably one of the brighter people I ever knew at the Vet that ever put on a helmet. And
was he a football player?
Yeah, he went to
I'm sorry, I'm English.
John, that's right. John, he was a tight end. He was a good one too. And Spag said that I was affable. And so nobody would have really just outed me. But a lot of people knew it and winked and nodded and looked the other way. But there were some people at the very top, had they gotten a hold of this, it would have been ugly. So
did they know, did those people, for example, know where the actual entrance was? Like how to get in there?
The people that would have hurt me?
No, the people who knew about you.
Yeah, they knew. I had my own door. They knew what I did. I worked at the stadium, and I had reason to be in the stadium every day out of the year, which is not true of other people.
Right.
There were some city workers, electricians, plumbers who might have to be in there a lot of times, but I had to be in there every day because I had taken over the parking lots. That was my job.
Right.
So the parking lots at the sports complex, not just the Vet, was the Spectrum and also the large JFK Stadium where you had Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, the Grateful Dead, 120,000 people.
Wow.
The Spectrum had over 220 events a year. People don't always think of that.
Right.
They think of the Flyers, Sixers, and whatnot, but they had things like they had people with bagpipes in competition. They had Lipizzan Stallions. They had basketball. They had boxing, wrestling, rock concerts. There was so much going on that I almost had to be there every day out of the year.
So it wasn't anything to do with the food stand or anything like that?
It was a food stand. When the stadium was built, there were 60 concession stands.
Right.
Okay. 48 were for food and beverages. 12 were for novelties, pennants and hats and things like that. But the stand that I had was across the hallway from my office.
Okay.
And it wasn't being used because it was in the outfield.
Okay.
If you walked across the concourse on the 200 level, Broad Street level, through the opening that goes out to the seats, you would be standing above the visiting team's bullpen in left field. There are no seats down below there because they're pulled up to create the outfield.
Yep.
For football, they would pull out some aluminum bleacher type seats to create all those seats.
Okay.
But there wasn't a fan base big enough in that area to support a novelty stand. So they shut it down. They weren't making any money.
Right.
And I got the key and I was using it for storage because it was convenient.
Yep.
And I worked for the people that had the concessions also. And I would store parking tickets in there.
Okay.
I would get a tractor trailer full.
Like the physical card that you get, right?
With different colors and numbering seats, so we could switch them off. Right. So I stored them in there. And I also ended up storing furniture for one of the Philadelphia Eagles, Richard Osborne. Ozzie was a beautiful guy that women loved Ozzie, and everybody understood why. You just look at him. He was wonderful.
Right.
And so Ozzie was afraid of making the team that year. Dick Vermeil, in the spring of 1976, Dick Vermeil had hired a new tight end coach.
Yep.
The new tight end coach was very strict and very religious, but in a almost he went over the line. I mean, he thought he was trying to find out about Ozzie's personal life. Okay. Because Ozzie was single, and he was dating a couple of the Liberty Bell cheerleaders. Okay. He was dating all kinds of beautiful women. And this guy was more interested in his off-the-field performance and morality than his on-the-field abilities. And Ozzie said, no matter what I do, I might not make the team. He said, the lease is up on my apartment over in Blackwood, New Jersey. Right. He said, if I sign a lease, my two roommates are what we called California guys. Yep. They lived in California. They were away from their family for half the year when they were playing ball in Philly. And back then in the 70s, you could get away with this. You could go home after the last game of the year and not have to show up until camp next year. Right. You couldn't do that today. I'm sure you couldn't. Right. But let me come back to the apartment. So you got to meet all these people. Was the point? Ball players?
You got to meet them the whole time. Oh yeah. And then what? So then the game's over, and then it's whatever time it is at night, 11 o'clock, whatever. And so everyone leaves. And you go into your little apartment, right, in your room, and so take us inside there. What was it like? What did you have in there? Well, the tractor trailer load of boxes that I mentioned when we put them in there. Yeah. What I did was, let me jump back for a second. Sure. Because Ozzie didn't want to sign a lease because he was afraid he'd get cut, and his two roommates who were still in California. They weren't there to sign anything. Okay. He'd be on the tab if they did something to that apartment or screwed up. He could get sued. Right. So he didn't want to sign it. Right. And he said, "Can I store my furniture in that room you have?" So he put his furniture in there, and he did get cut. Okay. He did get cut from the team, and he ended up getting picked up by the St. Louis Cardinals and coming back to play one of his first games against the Eagles in that stadium. And his furniture was your furniture.
But his furniture was in there, and the Pope came to town that year. Okay. This is the year the Pope came to town. I think it was October 3rd. I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday. And the night, I didn't know, I had 2 days off. I never got days off like that, 2 in a row. And so I was heading for the beach. I was heading down the shore to go hang out down at some of the bars down there and be on the beach for a couple of days. Yeah. It was a pleasant October, time. Right. And
So that you you were telling the story because then that's how you ended up in the room.
Yeah, I'm going down Broad Street. I'm heading for the Bit Bridge. I'm out of town. I'm out of here, and I hear out of the radio they're saying that the city planners have decided that since the Pope, they had no idea how many people were coming to that mass.
Right.
They thought it could be 1 million, but they didn't know. They weren't selling tickets.
Right.
People were just going to show up.
Yeah.
It was also a regular working day. It wasn't a holiday when when people wouldn't be coming in for normal work.
Yeah.
So they had both of these amounts of people coming, and so they said, if you have to, use public transportation. If you can't, go to Vet Stadium. We're going to open it up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you can take the subway up to City Hall and walk the short distance up to, which was a great idea, but not for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I ran a red light, I think, when I heard this coming out. I was going crazy. I was kicking the dashboard. It was, so I had nobody to work because I hadn't planned it. And all the people that worked for me, I was the only full-time person in the entire parking crew.
Yeah.
Everybody else was part-time. The supervisors were guys that had other jobs.
But wait, are you living in the stadium, in the room at this stage?
No.
Okay. So you're just building up to it.
The Pope, the Pope's coming down. So I had nobody work, and the regular workers, the flagmen and all that, and ticket takers, they were high school kids. All of them. So they all had school then. At the last minute, Philly canceled all schools. Which was a good move. But at the time, I had nobody scheduled and nobody available. So I went to one of the bars I used to hang out down South Street, Dobbs, and I told Seamus, the bouncer, I said, Seamus, I need a crew. And I've been smuggling these people into games forever, so they all owed me a favor. So I said, they've got to work for me. I'm stuck. Get a crew together. And then we were afraid that they wouldn't show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, sober, with their clothes on. So I said, let's have a sleepover at the vet. And we started laughing about that. And then that's what we did. The night before, I met them at Dobbs. I bought them burgers and beers upstairs. About 10 o'clock, we all got together, got in our cars and all, and went down to the stadium. And I took them in and I locked them in.
Oh, I see.
So I had a lock.
Because you had the key.
Yeah, of course. You
had to
fit in any time.
So, but were they sleeping like in the stands or in that room?
No, they were sleeping in the secret apartment. Many of them, because we had furniture.
So this was the very first night.
First night. And we turned out the lights, and in the dark, Michael McNally from the Electric Factory, he was one of the guys we pressed into service. He was a friend of mine. In the dark, he said, if you just cleaned up this room and rearranged the crap you got in here, he said, this will be the coolest apartment in the world. I never thought of it.
And so then what? Next day you moved in?
I slept there that night, and that was the first night, and I never moved out. I started moving. I moved a refrigerator. I moved in enough kitchen stuff so I could prepare anything I wanted in there. I had a restroom across the hallway in my office. I had a golf cart that looked like a little pickup truck with wood panels on the side. I had a 10-speed bike. I had my roller skates, and I had access to the entire building. I could go downstairs to the city workers' locker room, which was right behind the Phillies bullpen in right field. So I had lockers down there with all my stuff in it, all my jogging stuff. I could shower there. I could go across the hall to the commissary. I had a key for that. There was a washer and dryer in there. I had access to that. I had everything you could possibly want.
Were you afraid that you would get caught?
No,
or at least, what were you afraid of if you did get caught? Like, what would people have fired you, for example? You think?
Okay. Tug McGraw told me one time at Jack's Firehouse up in Fairmount, we're drinking, and we're talking about this. Tug was fascinated by the secret apartment. He didn't know about it at the time when he was playing ball for Philly, but he knew it later on. This was probably in the 90s. And he's laughing about it, and he says, because I work for my uncles. He said, if you got caught, he said, your uncles would have fed your body through the hot dog machine down at Medford Meats in Chester, Pennsylvania. He said, you would have left this mortal world. He said, as a hot dog, he said, with neon yellow mustard on your ass. And then he got this. He fell off his bar stool, spilled his drink. He said, your coffin would have been a hot dog roll. And he loved that, and I did too.
Speaking of hot dogs, what did you actually eat? Did you just go shopping and just bring your food back home?
I had food in there, and I was fastidious about that. I mean, this was a drop dead thing. If I had any food in there, even if we brought pizza in, every scrap of paper and even the containers went outside the building as soon as we were done. There was never anything for rats or rodents to get to. It was all secured. It was either in the refrigerator or a couple of locked cabinets where nothing, because had enough rats in Vietnam.
Right.
I wasn't afraid of them, but I didn't want them.
So going back to that original question about your mood and your state of mind, so what was it like? So you talked about the meditative type of thing. I mean, what is it like? What was it like to have all those people, like you said, in the stadium, and then suddenly, I would imagine it almost feels like you feel like you're putting one over on the world, and you're left there all alone. Can you just talk a little bit more about what it was actually like, how you felt, and how it helped you move on to your next stage of life?
I came to believe and had it as an experience that they were always there. That whatever the people brought to that building, because it wasn't just a building, but the spirit of the building was the people and the fans.
Interesting.
And whatever they brought to that building, when they left, it was still there. There was like a spirit there.
An energy.
Yeah, it was an energy, perfect. It was all there. I walked into the stadium one time with Billy Bradley during baseball season. Billy played ball mostly in the early 70s. I think he was out of there in 77. But Billy was a friend, and we walked in there one day, and we walked past, came in gate H and went out to the railing on the 200 level. We're standing, leaning on the railing, looking down the field, which was set up for baseball, pleasant afternoon, and we were just quiet for a while, and I said, Billy, I said, can you hear them? Because he was looking at me, he says, I'll always hear them. The stadium's empty now, and I knew, because Billy had that, where he was there getting that out of the fans in another way.
Sure. Yeah.
I always felt there was a spirit, there was an energy there.
Right. I can imagine that. And did you have like a favorite crowd that you thought, oh, great, it's this crowd or that crowd, or were they all pretty much the same?
No, they were a lot different. But
what was your favorite crowd? Like, did you? Oh, they're coming tonight.
It's like saying, what's your favorite kid?
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay.
But I mean, the Phillies fans were. I mean, the weather was usually more pleasant and all that kind of stuff. It was more, it was more affable in a lot of ways. Hot dog and a beer and a beautiful day.
Yeah.
The Eagles fans, it was like there was a different tension there. The tension was always the same.
Right.
Like it was late in the game and the bases were loaded and you were behind.
Yeah.
And you had that kind of. I mean, I thought it was to me it was a church.
Yeah.
And it was a church in a sense where you couldn't have a roof on it because the energy in the place would have blown the lid off the church. I mean, people. When it was 4th and long and you had to go for it because you had no options and late in the game, or if it was late in a baseball game, it was intense.
Yeah.
And they both had the same intensity, but the crowds were a lot different.
Yeah. I just got to say, by the way, if anyone's wondering why, anyone is welcome on the show. I seem to have a lot of gentlemen authors recently. So if you do know any ladies who want to come on the show who've written books, then please just reach out to me via my website. But I want to switch gears, Tom, because we could definitely talk about it for hours. But you wrote this wonderful book, but this is your second book.
Yes.
And I want you to tell us a little bit about your first book and what it, and for those interested in the Vietnam War, you as a veteran, I mean, your stories are quite extraordinary. Tell us why and how you managed to write that first book and the title. What is first of all the title? Many Buku Magics.
The title, it's hard for a reader to pick up where it's going.
Yeah.
It's called Many Buku Magics, which is a mix of French and Pidgin English.
Right.
And because I was with the mountain people, the Montagnards in Vietnam, I was not with Vietnamese. Yeah, they were different. They were.
I know there's so much still, but just tell me that little story about how you suddenly came out with that title to the guy. How did the title itself come about? And then that will give a people, because we haven't got that much longer to go. So just tell us how you came up with that title.
Okay. It was just spur of the moment. When I said the words, I was surprised to even hear them. I was in a North Vietnamese base camp just a couple miles south of the Ai Drang Valley, where the biggest battle of the war had taken place several years earlier. And we lost over 300 guys in 72 hours. So I was out there with one other American in some of these Montagnards. And we'd gone into a North Vietnamese base camp and set up ambushes because we knew there was a big unit heading that way.
Yeah.
And just before this, the Montagnards had come to me to tell me about a dream they'd had, and they had precognitive dreams, and I had a precognitive dream about August 17th also.
Okay.
And so when they
which year?
1968.
Okay.
So when they told me their dream, I said, I know about this dream. This dream is about me. I said, but today, I said, there's something I have to do, and I'm not sure what it is.
So wait, they came to you with dreams. Tell me that bit again. They would come to you with their dreams from that night, right?
Yeah.
And and they wanted what, your reaction to the dream?
They wanted to tell me because the dream that they had was that there would be a big battle that day,
right,
and many men would die,
right,
which happened to be true, and that's how it turned out.
On that day?
On that day.
And what did you say to them?
I said to them, don't worry, I know about this dream. It's more about me than it is you. There's something I must do, and if I do this, we'll be fine. If I don't, I will probably die.
Okay.
And that was a sobering thought for them to take in.
And is that when the title came in?
Yeah, and then I said, don't worry, today there will be many buku magics. You will be great soldiers.
Wow.
You will be, and they looked at me and they went, many buku magics. Every report, and they're all saying, he said, many buku magics. He's got this. Okay.
And what did you mean by that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just was. It just came out of me. I'm thinking, it didn't make any sense to me at the moment because I still didn't know what I had to do that day.
Yeah.
I discovered pretty fast.
So you, and I want people to understand, like, your first book is basically about you as a combat soldier with these amazing stories in Vietnam.
Yeah,
okay?
I was the commanding officer of the Special Forces 8 team on the Cambodian border in the summer of 1968. I was an airborne ranger in Special Forces during my time in the service, and I have a pet peeve as a veteran. I have a pet peeve. I don't know whether you would agree or just disagree or dismiss it. But so in America, I notice people will say "thank you for your service," "thank you for your service" when they find out you're a veteran, right? In England, they don't really say that, okay? But they say, but if you were on active service, i.e., if you were in a war, then they go, "Oh wow, that's amazing, thank you so much." Like if you were in Bosnia or the Gulf War, and I've noticed here, like someone can be on a battleship in just off California coast. And they serve for 6 months or a year, and people still say, "Oh, thank you for your service." And to me, it seems like, compared to someone like you, who, I mean, I've seen a tiny little bit of active service, but you are like the real thing. Does that ever cross your mind, or is it not something you've even considered? This is just a personal British cultural thing. I'm just curious, like when people say, does it cheese you off when people say that to other people? No.
Because it's service, right?
No. My life's been a gift, and I've had so many breaks and great things happen to me. I mean, after all these things we're talking about today, a couple years after I was in the stadium, I met the girl of my dreams. I mean, she is...
You met her in the stadium?
I didn't meet her there. I didn't meet her there, but I met her in 1983, and we've never been apart.
Oh, so this was just after you left the stadium?
A year after I left the stadium. I spent a year in Texas with Billy Bradley, running around with Billy.
And by the way, you're going to have to read the book to find out what happened and how it... Don't say anything, because I want people to read the book. How eventually got caught or had to leave. So let's not say anything about that, but because I want people to read the book. But so tell us how you met your lovely lady then, or where.
I met her in Wildwood. It's like the line from Casablanca. Sometimes we'll say, when things are up, we'll say, we'll always have Wildwood.
Oh, I love it.
It paraphrases the line, we'll always have Paris.
Yeah, sure.
It's a big difference between Wildwood and Paris. I love all that. Yeah. But I met her, and,
Well, you met her in a bar, or?
No, I met her. We both ended up working in the same little mall as part-time workers, or for a friend that begged us to go down there and work. Yeah. Separate friends, separate operations. Yeah. And we ended up both there, not ever thinking. If you asked me 3 months before where I'd be that summer, I wouldn't have had any idea. But
do you think? I feel like we've not even scratched the surface with your life. But anyway, do you think, given that you had all that active service, all that combat experience, do you think how do you think that affected the rest of your life in terms of appreciating every moment in life?
Like when you were saying about this, that cheesed me off. It wouldn't. Yeah. I mean, that's never mind. I mean, I'm so happy with the other things. Right. I kind of have a focus that way.
Right. But I mean, do you? Because over time, your military service disappears into sort of decades. But do you think? I think it was Churchill said something like, every man regrets not having served his country or been a soldier or something like that. But do you feel that it's sort of given you a different appreciation on life?
Absolutely.
In what way?
I just don't let things get to me. I mean,
Okay.
I'm more accepting of a lot of things.
Right.
And it's.
Are you able to pass that wisdom on to friends and family?
I don't know if I can.
No, because I actually kind of feel very strongly, I guess, that especially as, the Ukraine's just happened, so it's sort of different now. But what I feel is like, people just don't people in charge, say, let's put it like that. Our leaders, they don't understand the sacrifice that what that really means to be in a war, be under gunfire, be in battle. So and I feel it's just underappreciated. And I know people say that, thank you, but do they really realize? I feel if they had all been soldiers, perhaps, is what I'm trying to say, is that maybe they would sort of be better leaders. But let's get to I want to get to the writing, Tom.
Okay.
So when did you start the first book? How long did it take? And if you would just be brief, because we're almost out of time, but I want to get through your writing.
Okay. I quit the job I had in June of 1976, and said I was going to go write this book.
Okay, so this was before you went to the vet stadium.
Oh yes,
right.
Yes.
So
I went up to Cape Cod and I wrote, I wrote for about 3 or 4 months in an old farmhouse up there. But I was not happy with anything I had done.
Okay.
And I came back and I needed work, and I ended up. My cousin had just taken over the parking operation, so he asked me if I wanted to work there because I needed work. So I started working in the parking lot. 2 years later, he wanted out, and when he wanted out, they put me in his slot, so I took over the parking lot. So I started in 76, and then I finished it in 2015.
Oh, wow.
It took me that long.
So you had it, and did it change a lot over that time? Did you keep
Absolutely.
Going?
It changed many ways, but the basic story didn't change. I mean, the basic story is just the way.
Did you ever do a class on writing or read books on writing? You just wrote?
I was an English major in college.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, I majored in English.
Okay.
I loved English literature.
So then, what you said you finished it in 2015?
Yes.
So then, what did you do with that manuscript? Did you take it to an editor? Did you try and get an agent or a literature?
No, I self-published it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it got a very good Kirkus review.
But did you even hire a professional editor?
No.
Not even?
No.
But you presumably went over it many times yourself?
Many friends worked on it.
Okay.
Many friends were a big help.
See, that's really interesting because, I always say you've got to spend, a couple of thousand, say, on a professional editor, which I did, but you didn't. And you had the friends and you had the education. So that's kind of interesting. You're one of the first people who sort of admitted they didn't hire a professional editor. But anyway, the point was, it did well because it got a good review.
It did well. I mean, Kirkus is, people that know Kirkus.
Sure, absolutely.
It's a great review on Kirkus.
Yeah.
They said that it begged for the big screen treatment.
Oh, wow.
And I've sold it now because...
Oh, so you saw the first book?
Yeah, I've sold them both.
Okay.
Or they're called they're called options.
Options, that's right. Yeah,
they're options.
A movie option.
Yeah, I've sold options on both.
Right, fantastic.
But they wanted the first book, which makes me really excited.
Yeah.
Because of the second book. The second book about the stadium, I understand, one reviewer said something like, it's like eating a good dessert.
Yeah.
I love that. It's terse. It's really...
Yeah.
But this book is somewhat frivolous.
Yeah.
The other book is serious.
Wow.
And the other book fulfills a promise, an unspoken promise I made to the mothers of 7 friends of mine that were killed.
Oh, wow.
And that's why I always struggled with that book and kept coming back to it, even though it kept just whacking me in the soul.
What advice do you have for people who, want to write, but they just can't quite get to it?
I'll quote Churchill for you. Never, 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 never give up.
Nice. I love
7 nevers.
Yeah, I love it. That's good. That's really great advice.
Churchill, I mean, but really, I credit my wife, Peggy, the love of my life, for this, because she met me in '83, and she knew I talked about it and told her the story and all that and what I was doing.
Yeah.
But she never gave up on me. She always believed in it, believed in the story, believed in my ability to do it.
Right.
She always encouraged me, always.
Right. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you, man. That was really fantastic. Thanks so much for coming.
I hope I helped someone.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Tom, for joining us. Absolutely fascinating tale. You can find out more about Tom's books, including his first book, Menibuku Magics, on Amazon. And finally, if you didn't know, this year is Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee celebration, which means that the Queen has been on the British throne for 70 years. And you can enjoy this non-fiction royal memoir about my great aunt, Florence Bramford, who travelled the world on royal tours under 2 Queen Elizabeths. Cheerio, see you next time.